Hello. Welcome. Hi, Alexi. Hi, Adam. Hi, Bob. Hello, Georgia. Great to see you, Gerald. I see my dad is on. Oh, my. Linda, it's wonderful to have you. Harvey, great to see you. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Margaret. Missy, Teresa, Tom. We're giving folks just a moment to get into the webinar mode. While I can't see your faces, I can see your names and I know you're here. We're really excited to welcome you to the Esplanade Association's 2026 annual meeting, and it is our 25th annual meeting, as it is our 25th anniversary. I am going to share screen to let's stop. Let's see if I can't get our presentation going. Doesn't seem to want to.
Oh, Jen, I could see it when you shared it just a moment ago.
You could. Okay.
Yes.
Very good. I was going to say, if nothing else, I will just remove everything and start again. Right. It looks like I'm on the correct screen, so. Very good. And I see we still have a few more people coming in. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to do my best to try this one last time. So, okay, did that work?
Yes, looks good.
Okay, fantastic. All right, we are about 3 minutes in. Emma Rose, I'll look to you to let us know if you see a filter or we should get going.
I think we should get going with the meeting. We'll continue to let people in and we can catch them up as they come in.
Phenomenal. Okay, well, I'm thrilled to be here with my colleagues Emma Rose Rainville and Annalisa Spina and the phenomenal guest speaker Stephanie Fletcher for the Esplanade Association's 25th annual meeting. My name is Jen Mergel. I am the James and Audrey Foster Executive Director, and it is my thrill to welcome you. What I'm sharing on screen is a image of the Esplanade as the sun is setting, like it is right now in the springtime, with a big welcome message. And there are two people sitting on one of our Surecliff benches looking out at the Longfellow Bridge. Our agenda for the evening, for the first half of the meeting, I'm going to be sharing information about our 2025 annual report, which has been published today, along with some numbers, highlights, and tributes. So a few key updates on what's been happening since 2025, and we will follow through with the business of our 2026 board slate, and I'll end with a few updates on what's upcoming in the park. At 6:30 p.m., I'm going to pass over to Stephanie Fletcher to share her phenomenal presentation, 25 Species for 25 Years, and then we'll open it up to Q&A at the end of the meeting. Seen here is a photo of folks birding in the park. looking up at the tree canopy and searching for some feathered friends. So to start us off right away, I am so proud of our team. I definitely want to shout out our wonderful colleague, Nancy Gong, for her first publication with the Esplanade Association. We have just released our 2025 annual report and our 25th anniversary year. That is looking back at the past year. That can be found at esplanade.org/publications. And there are about 38 pages of information about the past year, including lots of gratitude to our supporters, as well as highlights on our work, our partnerships, and the health and past and future of the organization. So I know that my colleagues just put in the chat the link to the publications page so you can skim through yourself, but I will be focusing in on just a few key highlights from the publication for this year. One is I'm very proud of the way our team has distilled a lot of highlights by the numbers, and we were thrilled to continue our horticultural care of the park with more plantings. Great volunteer engagement and coordination with nearly 1,800 volunteers this past year, which is the most engagement we've ever had, and it continues to grow. Our programming was fantastic, with over 100 free activities offered, separate from our volunteer engagements, with numerous partners and over 10,000 attendees engaged. And we're doing a lot of hard work in the park to plan for the future, especially for large-scale projects. So for our pathway safety, we've been tracking modes of transit to ensure we have complete data on how our pathways are used and how many types of uses there are at different speeds. We're also recording volume of activity and entries into the park, especially near the new campus that we will be opening. You can see the screen behind me at the end of this year to help us plan for volume visits in the future. I'm thrilled that with community support, nearly 1,000 supporters this past year, we were able to raise significant funding for our ongoing annual operations, as well as our big construction project that's coming up. So with that said, just to summarize very quickly, for our annual operating support, we ended the year with just under a $5,000 surplus. And I'm very pleased that over 2/3 of our funds raised went straight into park programs, horticulture, sustainability, and significant park projects. You can see more detailed information and summary in the annual report. There were a number of highlights in this past year, many celebratory highlights from early in April of 2025, a year ago, bringing in the first full season of the Centennial Fountain at Dartmouth Street Lagoon, which marks over 100 years of history of park stewardship by our wonderful partner, Department of Conservation and Recreation. It was their predecessor, the Metropolitan District Commission. And that the medallion at the Dartmouth Street Lagoon is now brought to life by the seasonal fountain that comes out every April through October. The fountain just came out yesterday, and I'm thrilled to report, in partnership with DCR, it will be glowing blue and yellow for Boston Marathon weekend and Boston Strong, to welcome all of the runners to town. Last May, we also had a big milestone. Oh, and I'm realizing the wonderful Paul Fahey from Department of Conservation and Recreation is with us, the Director of Partnerships. We are so thrilled to have our DCR partners with us this evening. Thank you for the chat, Paul. Last May, Paul was here as well, along with wonderful partners from the Department of Conservation and the Department of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance, or DCAM, as we led the groundbreaking for the future campus where we will be introducing the Esplanade's new Smith Family Pavilion and the full 2-acre campus of new amenities to all park users. So that will be coming later this year, and we broke ground last May. In June, we had brilliant youth orchestra coordinated by Boston Music Project take over the Hatchell stage as part of our Groundbeat concert series, which begins again this May. And in August, we were thrilled again to partner with Department of Conservation. I want to shout out Sandy Bailey and Commissioner LaChapelle and all of our partners at DCR for helping us bring to life with Gronk Nation Youth Foundation a wonderful new asset to the Esplanade at the downriver end across from Mesh General near the Museum of Science, the brand new, fully universally accessible Gronk Playground to support youth fitness for all ages and abilities. So it was a fabulously fun past year to celebrate. We also want to pay tribute to some members of the Esplanade Association family that we did lose last year and whose legacy we hope to carry forward in terms of their joy and inspiration. Phenomenal board member Fritz Castleman, who had also been a prior Esplanade Association board treasurer, passed away in September. And he was a fierce advocate for the arts, for music especially, and also for parks and for neighborhoods. And so Fritz, I think, will be remembered fondly, especially for his advocacy of the Francis Appleton Footbridge, or Fanny Appleton Footbridge. So if you've enjoyed crossing into the Esplanade from Charles Circle on the one ADA accessible and shared with a footbridge to the park, that's due in thanks to Fritz. I also want to acknowledge the passing of Bob Doran in October, who was not only a phenomenal philanthropist and businessman and wonderful advocate of landscape and parks and the arts, and especially architecture, but a dear friend to the architect of our pavilion, Marianne Thompson. And Bob and his wife Happy were with us at the groundbreaking, and we were thrilled that he was able to see the project commence. So we are so excited to complete this project in many ways as a tribute to Bob's vision. He called this project something that will be transformational for how people access green space in Boston, and we believe it. Lastly, on November 1st, we lost our dear Susan Hurley, who was not only the founder of Charity Teams, with whom the Esplanade Association has worked for the past 7 years in leading our Team Esplanade every Boston Marathon to run to raise support for the park that they love and train in. But Susan was also instrumental in bringing Rob Gronkowski and Gronk Nation Youth Foundation together in partnership with the Esplanade Association and DCR to realize the playground. And we were thrilled that Susan was there at the ribbon cutting, or we'll call it the break tape, for that marathon project with Rob Gronkowski last August. So I do hope you read more about them in the annual report. I also just wanted to share a little update that since we closed out our report on everything that happened January through December of last year, we made such progress on the construction for the new campus and pavilion. In January, getting our foundations in by February, after our elevator shaft was in, by March, getting the steel delivered, and just this April, you can see me with the photograph on Monday with architect Marianne Thompson, standing on the second level of our building as we await the build out of what will be a beautiful deck to view the Longfellow Bridge and the Charles River Basin. So we're really excited for the progress. You can continue to follow that at esplanade.org/charlesbank. We're so excited and grateful for everybody who's supported thus far, and we are very close in progress to date to completing the fundraising goal. So Jay Livingstone, thank you so much for being here, and I'm thrilled that Representative Livingstone from District 8 is with us this evening, who's been a fierce advocate also of this project and was with us and spoke at the groundbreaking. Now I want to move over to some formal business for the Esplanade Association. Each April we hold our annual meeting, and Each April, we announce the votes of all of those who have supported in the prior year for approval of our board slate. And we have received the votes via email over the past 2 weeks, and there was unanimous support. I have not seen one vote otherwise for our board officers. Alexi Conine as chair. You can see her here with her son, Quinn, who running our 5K this past fall. Jake Lemley as vice chair, Harvey Becker as treasurer, and Tom Lewis as our clerk. We did vote for some special term extensions for Alexi Conine and Harvey Becker as officers, given we're amidst the construction and opening of our new facility, and are really eager to see smooth operations and getting everything up and running well. We were thrilled to have renewal of these wonderful board members for their third term, Missy Drewley, Adam Forkner, Claire Risher, and Matt Ostro for his second term. And then we welcomed 2 new members, Jim Febio and Dacia Napier, who were phenomenal. All of them are part of our team Esplanade, but I'm giving you a little preview of our marathon singlet that you can see as members of our team Esplanade this year are running on Monday. I also want to shout out, we had the departure of one of our board officers, Emmy Winter, who had previously served as vice chair, and has served on the board for 12 years. The board unanimously voted to make Emmy director emerita, and we were just so grateful for all of Emmy's service to the organization over these past years. So we are hugely appreciative of Emmy and all of the growth that she's seen of the organization since she began working with us back in 2013. So thank you so much, Emmy, and to all of the board members for their service. From here, I just wanted to share some breaking news and some items that are relevant and upcoming in the park. So first of all, this news has been embargoed until today, but we're really excited to announce after a big push that so many supporters and lovers and users of the Charles River Esplanade followed our campaign to please vote for us within USA Today's Reader's Choice Awards for the 10 best. And we were voted among the 10 best river walks in the nation. We are number 5, which is the highest that the Charles River Esplanade has ever been. And we wanted to share a sincere thank you to everybody who chipped in maybe 30 seconds of their day to share vote and appreciation for our wonderful park. I do have a very funny QR code up at the top of my screen. We'll take just a moment of congratulations. Thank you, Anita, for your comment. Our dear friends at the Museum of Science worked closely with us to celebrate, again, Rob Gronkowski's championing of youth fitness in Boston, invited Rob to be part of their Year of Being Human, and the video of Rob explaining how he made his signature football spike down into, the end zone of many football fields over his career, and how the physics of that worked. That video is up for a Webby Award. Voting ends tomorrow, but I asked our friends at Museum of Science, thank you, Emma Rose, for putting this in the chat, to share a short URL that you can click and vote today for Rob Gronkowski and our friends at the Museum of Science for a Webby Award. We hope they win. I think they're in 3rd place right now. But if you click in the link, bit.ly, and then 41 small z, capital Z, capital A, lowercase p, lowercase u, you will have an opportunity to also show some Boston pride for our friends at Museum of Science. So I would encourage you to do so. Please do. And thank you again to everybody who voted for the Esplanade as Best River Walk. We're thrilled to be number 5 in the nation. We'll keep pushing to be number 1. Also very excited. This was part of my day today. I'm coming from the park this afternoon. We have the 27th annual Charles River Cleanup that we do in partnership each year with our friends at Charles River Conservancy, Charles River Watershed Association, Waltham Land Trust, and the Emerald Necklace Conservancy, which stewards the muddy river that leads into the Charles. Each year, we all get together with our wonderful partners. There's Paul Fahey here, who's on tonight's call, along with representatives from a number of our districts, and Commissioner LaChapelle and Deputy Commissioner Kendra Amaral. And we are thrilled that every year we can join forces as sister nonprofits, come together on what DCR leads as Park Serve Day across the entire Commonwealth. And the Charles River Cleanup is one of the biggest cleanups in the Commonwealth. This will be April 24th and April 25th. It is the Friday and Saturday right after Earth Day on April 22nd. And we still can welcome more signups to come participate. What I'll say is special about doing the cleanup with the Esplanade Association is we are the very last backstop. We're like the goalie before the Charles River Dam. So we pick up everything before it might flow through the dam and into the Boston Harbor. Large scale, small scale, microplastics, everything in between. And after each winter, so much has moved downriver over the course of the winter and freeze and thaws that we really need so many people's help. So we already have about 500 folks signed up with the Esplanade, but we welcome many more to join us on April 24th and 25th to help us clean up the riverfront and especially right at the riverbed. So we're looking forward to that, April 24th and 25th. Also, just today, this is me this morning in the park, we commenced our monthly park bench chats. And these are an opportunity for us to get out into the park before we have our new campus, and people will know where to find us, and welcome feedback and introduce ourselves and hear what people are seeing in the park and what we can learn from them in ways to improve the park experience, whether that's through programs, for projects, for any maintenance of the park. Here I am with Andrew from Somerville, who commutes through the park regularly. He wanted to shout out, again, our partnership with DCR on putting up some speed boards in the park. There are 3 within the Esplanade and many more broadly across DCR properties as a pilot to help people understand how fast they're going when they're sharing pathways with maybe folks who are walking or strolling or rolling a bit more slowly. So this morning we were at Dartmouth Comfort Station, and I think you can also see an image of me with Andrew on screen in front of our tent, and on the pavement is a project we worked with DCR on in 2025, Stop and Look paint, to remind people to look both ways so that we can share the pathways safely. We'll have more park bench chats on Wednesdays, each of the months upcoming through October. So please do come join us, come out and tell us what you're seeing. I was thrilled to meet somebody today who is on maternity and teaching at Harvard's GSD in urban planning, and said she was using the Charles Bank project as a case study for her students on how nonprofits can work in partnership with our state partners on great projects and programming in the park. So it's always fun to be out in the park and to hear what you think and what you're sharing about the park. I also want you to follow just a bit of what is upcoming this season. We're thrilled on Monday that Team Esplanade, we have 15 runners who, as part of the charity teams with BAA, are running in the Boston Marathon. Again, inspired by the great Susan Hurley and now her sons Max and Ryan McGilvery, as part of charity teams, larger work. Our captain, Danielle Bishop, is leading a number of runners on Monday. And if you're in town and watching the race, please do come cheer on Team Esplanade in those beautiful singlets with all of the fireworks on them. By April 30th, we actually start our River Fit programs again. We do it in the winter, spring, summer, and fall. You can see Broadway Burn is coming back to the Hatch Oval, and we think you'd really enjoy moving and grooving in the park. All of our fitness programs are free, so please do come out and explore and enjoy. We're thrilled to partner with our friends at Think Outside the Box and City of Boston, Silent Rhythms, as well as DCR on the presentation of Salsa ASL, where individuals can salsa across a spectrum of abilities and hearing or sight. And we are so excited to offer this with a dance floor in the Hatchell Grove, so the paved space next to the Hatch Oval. And then right after that, the illumination project, Rooted in Memory, will be at the Charles Eliot Memorial Garden and Monument, very near to Community Boating Inc. And we would love for folks to come out in the evening to see that projection piece, where many in the community have shared their own stories about what it means to be rooted to a sense of place through the metaphor of the life cycle of trees. So it will be a very beautiful project projected within the monument and back out onto the trees, and we hope you can come see it. Finally, I don't want to forget, at the end of May comes the next season of Groundbeat, which has been going strong since 2018. So we're now in our 8th season, and we're thrilled to focus on the spectrum of talent across youth and folks across abilities, with Boston Music Project coming back out as our finale on June 17th. Groundbeat is our pre-Juneteenth concert series on the Hatch. We really encourage you to come out to explore new talent and see them really take over the Esplanade with a lot of energy and joy. So we hope you might join in the fun. That is all a wonderful calendar of events that you can follow at esplanade.org/events. With that, I'm welcoming any questions at the end of Stephanie's presentation tonight, but I'm very excited to turn over, I think we're right on time, for me to introduce the wonderful Steph Fletcher. Stephanie, thank you. I will make a brief introduction before you share screen and get going. But I have known Stephanie not only as a phenomenal user of the Charles River Esplanade, but also somebody who's been fantastically supportive and active with the Garden Club of Back Bay and the Friends of the Public Garden and Massa Audubon. But most recently, Stephanie received her certifications both as a certified naturalist as well as a certified pollinator steward, and has been doing research that has garnered not just local attention, but national attention. And I think it's pretty super that her discovery of the first Juro spider in New England was featured in the TEDx Boston talk earlier this year, which got us very excited to invite Stephanie to share a specialized presentation for you for our 25th anniversary year on 25 species in the park. Stephanie, we're really excited about all that you have discovered in the space that we share with so many species we may or may not see and may or may not know are along the Charles River. We're also excited for people, I hope, to be inspired by your work as a citizen scientist and how you're contributing knowledge for more researchers to learn about not just green space, but especially urban green space. So with that said, I am going to turn the screen over to you. And Stephanie, we are thrilled to have you as our guest speaker for our 25th anniversary annual meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for following along. I'm going to work on sharing my screen. And there it is. Now, if I can get it to present, there we go. Excellent. Well, first, I would like to congratulate the Esplanade Association on celebrating 25 years. As someone who's been the beneficiary of this beautiful park for just a little over this grand milestone, it's been wonderful growing up with you. Tonight, it's my honor to share 25 fun facts about 25 species that live on or visit the Esplanade. I compiled this list from gathering biodiversity data on the Esplanade for a project last year. I used an app called iNaturalist to document and help me identify all the plants, animals, and insects that I found that I didn't recognize. At the end, I'll provide a link to that project for anyone who's interested. All the photos you'll see, with one or two exceptions, are those I took somewhere along the park. But before I begin, to frame things properly, it's helpful to point out the Esplanade's history. As far back as the 1870s, the Esplanade did not exist as it does today. The area was once a tidal river. Over time, infilling and park construction took place alongside the development of the Back Bay. This was not a single project, but a prolonged process, with additions continuing from the 1870s through the 1930s and beyond. As a result, most of the living things that visit or inhabit the Esplanade today have likely only been present for the past century. All living things require water, food, shelter, and air. Some living things are generalists, meaning that they can survive on a wide range of food offerings, while others are specialists, meaning they have very specific requirements for their food and even shelter, which in part dictates what we'll find along the Esplanade. As we know, the Esplanade is man-made. While there are plants and animals that are native to this part of Massachusetts, let's explore what visits here now and makes the Esplanade its home. We'll follow the seasons, starting with winter. Naturally, winter is a quiet time. You'll most commonly see birds, like raptors, seagulls, and waterfowl like ducks and geese. Red-tailed hawks visit for food, keeping the rabbit and squirrel populations at bay. Bald eagles visit for fish from the Charles. Their reappearance here, given the bald eagle's decline, has been exciting to see, as it speaks to the eagle's population slowly rebounding. The eagles that visit tend to nest over in Cambridge, closer to the Fresh Pond area, but they fly over as far as the Mass Ave Bridge, searching for food in the winter. Winter visiting ducks like these mergansers migrate through, including common mergansers, red-breasted mergansers, and hooded mergansers. Late winter starts to welcome some early spring migrating songbirds, like the golden-crowned kinglet, who feasts on overwintering caterpillars camouflaged as twigs on the Esplanade's trees, and red-winged blackbirds come back to nest each spring, and whose call is an unmistakable sign that spring is near. And the male common yellowthroat, with its telltale black mask and bright yellow throat, visits in search for a mate. With the spring comes more life. Plants start to wake up and bloom, offering food to a wide variety of important insects like bees and other pollinators. The Esplanade is host to some unique pollinator species like this native mining bee with the best name, the miserable mining bee. It's unclear how they got their name. They don't appear to be miserable, and they don't make life for humans miserable either. They are a short-lived spring solitary bee species only around in April and May. They're referred to as mining bees because they construct underground nests. They tend to be happiest in human-modified landscapes, which might explain why we can find them here. On the Esplanade, they make their home near a particular spring-blooming tree, where they appear to get most of their food. They are excellent pollinators for many of our early blooming fruit trees, like apple, cherry, and crabapple. On the Esplanade, they live in an area that's typically undisturbed by humans, which is probably why we can find them here year after year. The Esplanade is also host to several bumblebee species, like the two-spotted bumblebee, which we only see in June and July. They love to forage on the blossoms of the native foxglove beard tongue, planted by the Esplanade, and the flowers of the hawthorn trees, all found in the garden by the Oliver Wendell Holmes Memorial near the Dartmouth Street footbridge. The brown-belted bumblebees wake up in May and stay around until October or so. They're considered generalist feeders, which mean they're not as picky as some bumblebees about what they can eat to survive. Lastly, we have the most abundant bumblebee, the common eastern bumblebee. You'll find them flying from as early as April to as late as November on the Esplanade. They too are generalist feeders, gathering pollen and nectar from a wide variety of plants, from local weeds to plants and tree blossoms, all the way down to introduced species that were never part of their original diet. On the topic of introduced plants, now is a good time to talk about invasive species, or as I like to call them, those species that have been introduced to an area outside of their original home range that, left unchecked, can take over in ways that are detrimental to native plants and the services they provide to the local ecology. Invasives tend to take over and disrupt and potentially devastate the local plants and wildlife that call Massachusetts home. Not all invasive plants are created equal, however, and I'll give you 3 examples. First up is Japanese knotweed. Originally from East Asia, is an incredibly aggressive plant on Massachusetts' invasive species list. As anyone who's tried to remove it knows, it's a fast grower and is extremely hard to remove once it's taken hold. It is well managed on the Esplanade thanks to the great care by the Esplanade staff and members of MassDCR. Similar to kudzu in its ability to smother out other plant life, it has thoroughly earned its title of an invasive species. Then we have another plant which is considered invasive due to its sprawling nature, bindweed. There are 2 types of bindweed found in Massachusetts, field bindweed and hedge bindweed. Field bindweed is considered the worst of the 2, thanks to its incredibly deep taproots and its tendency to interfere with crops. What we see on the Esplanade, thanks to the scientific experts on iNaturalist who helped me identify it, is hedge bindweed. Unlike field bindweed, which is endemic to Europe and Asia, hedge bindweed is native to the eastern United States. This too is kept in check on the Esplanade, and while considered invasive, from my observations, it provides one helpful role for any of the plants that do actually remain. It provides food and shelter to many of the native bees that live here. Native bees tend to be drawn to native plants, often because the food source is more nutritious than that of cultivated or introduced plants. Where in the last example we have native bees drawn to a native plant that is considered invasive, here's an example of an invasive or really introduced bee that is foraging on an invasive or introduced plant. The Wilkie's mining bee was introduced from Europe, which I found endlessly foraging on bird's foot trefoil last spring, which is also from Europe. So to try to oversimplify and humanize it, one could joke that it's kind of like someone from the United States traveling to Morocco and dining at McDonald's. We're often drawn to the foods that are familiar, and this may be true in this instance for the bee being drawn to the plant. Bird's foot trefoil is also considered an invasive plant, but it's small, and I found just a few small patches of it where the Charles Bank construction is now taking place. So we'll see if it tries to return or not once the construction is complete. Now, flipping from invasive to native plants, one of my favorite native summertime plants is pickerel weed, and let me tell you why. Pickerel weed has 3 bee specialists that survive only on pickerel pollen, and it's a favor of many other bee and butterfly pollinators as well. It's also great for erosion control. It acts as a wave barrier. The roots act as habitat for fish and aquatic insects like dragonflies. The seeds and leaves also provide food for waterfowl and mammals like muskrats. It helps filter water by absorbing excess nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus, reducing the risk of algae blooms, which in the lagoon is so important. Pickerel weed is great for managing the health of water, keeping cyanobacteria at bay. We know there is more that humans can also do for river health, like the advocacy I know the Esplanade Association and the Charles River Watershed support to close the last 3 combined sewage outflows on the Charles River to keep the sewagey stuff that cyanobacteria loves out of the water. But in the meantime, pickerel weed does its part naturally. I keep hoping this plant by the Hatchell will spread a bit because it is as beautiful as it is useful. As we head into summer, with it comes biting and stinging insects. Mosquito control? Welcome your local dragon and damselflies. If we want mosquito control, then we want the dragonflies and damselflies around because they will suck up mosquitoes and other annoying insects faster than any Hoover vacuum cleaner or poisonous sprays can. They are considered the most voracious predators in the entire animal kingdom. with a 95% success rate at capturing their prey, and they consume about 1/5 of their body weight every day. All we need to do to keep them around is to keep the Charles River clean. I managed to document 7 different types of dragonflies and damselflies this past summer, but I know there are at least a few others around. Speaking of stinging insects, here is one that looks like it should sting, but it doesn't. On the left is an eastern hornetfly. It's a hoverfly that is a bee-wasp mimic, but it cannot sting. Its role is simply to pollinate plants, but it uses the mimicry as a defense mechanism against predators. These flies are specialists, meaning they can only survive on the pollen from certain plants like goldenrod, blazing star, meadowsweet, and wood aster, all of which are native plants. Fun fact, here in Massachusetts, there are hundreds of different types of bees, wasps, and bee mimics like this hoverfly. As it relates to stinging, only female bees and wasps sting, never the males. And from there, only a very small few are the ones guilty of stinging humans. We're quick to shout, "I was stung by a bee!" But unless you're messing with a honeybee hive or you step on a honeybee, chances are you were stung by a wasp, like a yellow jacket. Most bees and wasps often get a bad rap for stinging, when in fact, it's more commonly a yellow jacket that is to blame. The Charles River itself offers much in terms of life along the Esplanade. Take, for example, these pumpkin seed fish. Arguably one of the prettiest fish in our state, pumpkin seed is a native warm water species. These fish are frequently the primary species first-time anglers tend to catch, which has been proven by our young anglers right here on the docks of the Esplanade. Seeing the fish here is not surprising, given their preference for calm and fresh to slightly brackish water. Interestingly, they are also tolerant of low oxygen levels, a wide range of pH, and abundant plant life, all of which describes parts of our river very well. Who else lives in the water here? Turtles do. The river is host to several turtle species, like red-eared pond sliders, likely ancestors of store-bought pond sliders, snapping turtles, which, for better or for worse, love to feast on the babies of swan, geese, and ducks. And this past summer, I also spotted an eastern painted turtle basking on an old log. In the early fall, you might start to notice tiny little balls on some of the Esplanade's tree leaves, particularly on oak. These little balls are harmless galls created after a gall wasp lays an egg. When it does so, it injects chemicals that force the tree to redirect its energy from normal growth into forming a protective gall around the egg. The relationship between gall wasps and trees is a specialized form of parasitic symbiosis, but is one that is considered a sign of a healthy ecosystem. Fun fact, as we celebrate America's 250th anniversary, historically, the high tannin content of oak galls was combined with iron sulfate to produce a permanent ink, iron gall ink, used to write documents like the Magna Carta, the U.S. Constitution, and the Declaration of Independence. Speaking of galls, one morning I went for a walk and was on the lookout for galls. I approached a dense, low-growing tree and stopped to look at its leaves. And after a moment, I felt like I should look up. And when I did, this is what I saw. A black-crowned night heron, hiding in the dense wood, its red eye keeping a close watch on what I was doing. I decided to give the bird some space and took some steps back before taking a photo to remember the occasion by. Black-crowned night herons have suffered a significant decline in numbers over the years, in part due to habitat loss, so it's always a treat to see one sheltering here on the Esplanade. Over the years, the Esplanade has also played surrogate to several unlikely pet drop-offs, like the red-eared pond sliders I just mentioned, but also a domestic mallard, otherwise known as a Pekin duck, that was here years ago, and most recently this past fall, a baby alligator. I'm happy to report that the duck and alligator were successfully captured and relocated, however. While the Esplanade is a man-made park, There is also evidence that it is host to a few endangered native species, those that were either living nearby before the construction began, or those that have since found the Esplanade provides the perfect home for their survival. In order to protect them, I won't discuss what they are. However, having them here is one of the many reasons why the continued support for the work that the Esplanade Association provides is so critical for them, but also for those of us who make this park our home, for those of us who visit to walk, to run, to bike, to fish, to take an exercise class, or to catch a concert. It's a remarkable place, created for us to come together and enjoy nature in the city. Thanks to the care provided for these spaces, we have the benefit of being able to share it with other species, making it an even more vibrant place to visit. In short, the Esplanade is a place we can all call home. And with that, I'd like to thank the Esplanade Association for letting me conduct my study here, particularly to Jim Doyle for his encouragement, and to Jen and Alexi for asking me to share this with you. And for anyone interested, I've included a link to the information I gathered on iNaturalist. There will be many more species listed there. I believe at last count, just today, I was up to 136 species that I've seen. You don't need an account to view it. You can just click on the link and it will take you there. And I've also left my email address here in case you'd rather email me. But for now, if you wish, I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
Yay. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm getting notes saying, this woman is awesome. Your research is phenomenal and inspiring. I'm hoping that Emma Rose, you could help us if we have questions in the chat or if folks raise their hands to ask. And Claire Corcoran also has a big woohoo in the chat. Hi, Claire. But I have one question for you to start, knowing that I've seen how beautiful your photography is of human beings and of beautiful detailed shots and landscapes. Can you describe how you chose to pursue your certification and how you chose to pursue this research? Was there an obvious entry point or a tipping point or a trigger that got you going?
There was. And probably very similarly for many of us who during COVID lockdown were twiddling our thumbs and trying to decide what to do with our time. As my bio may have mentioned, I've always been very interested in nature. And I nearly pursued it as a career and then pivoted during college when a college professor said, have you ever thought about minoring in business? And I realized that at that time, that was the right path for me. But at any rate, coming back to COVID days, I decided that getting out as often as I could would be beneficial to me. And I've always loved photography. And so I started just paying better attention to what I was seeing around me. And I learned that there was more than one kind of bumblebee. And I didn't know that before. So I decided I better go look and see, are there other types? And luckily, there was this great tool called iNaturalist that allowed you to take the photo, plug it in, and scientists from around the world will look and confirm whether or not what you saw is what you think it was. And from that, I learned more and more. And now I'm hooked and just look for anything I can.
I love it. I know a lot of us got back out into especially urban parks during the pandemic, maybe in ways that we hadn't for a long time. And that this also led to not only new learning for you, but also new learning for all of us in terms of new species discovered is pretty huge. I
just want to jump in and say, if you'd like to ask a question, please feel free to use the raise hand function and I can unmute you in order to do that. I will say we have two questions in the chat for you, Stephanie. One was just if you could say again the name of the species of heron that you saw that had that great eye photograph.
Oh, yes. The black-crowned night heron is what that was.
And then would you also be able to share a little bit of why you decided to not not share the photos or the species of the protected, the endangered species that you have seen in the Esplanade?
Oh, I'd be happy to. Absolutely. Um, you know, with our ability these days to communicate quickly and widely through social media, and where I think a lot of us humans love being able to be recognized for the things that we see and learn and um, so on. It's occurred to me that sometimes the sharing, while beneficial, can also be detrimental to those that can't protect themselves. And so, in the cases that I'm thinking of, there are a couple of beings living on the Esplanade that are so special that it just wouldn't be fair to them. I totally understand if people are really, really curious because I would be too. But it's one of those things where I'd rather know that they're protected. Hopefully, they then expand and grow, sort of like the bald eagles making a comeback. And then we can celebrate their success, regrowing on the Esplanade. So that would be my goal. So stay tuned. Maybe we can make that happen in a couple of years.
Margaret, I'd be happy to unmute you and let you ask your question now.
Technology. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Stephanie, that was an unbelievable presentation. I'm one of your very biggest fans. I can't believe what you have done. I just want to put an idea into your mind now that you're an expert in this area and also as a possible project for the Esplanade Association. And that would be to use the iNaturalist site and to do what's called a bioblast, which invites the public to become sort of citizen scientists for the day or for 2 days. And they go out and they identify whatever species they can, just like you have in your presentation, and then it's combined as with the help of scientists to do this. And it's a really great educational experience, and I think it would also be attractive to a lot of the Esplanade Association users. But I've always wanted this done somewhere, either in the public garden or somewhere else. But now that you've created this basis for it and shown what the possibilities are, I think maybe you can make it happen.
Oh, yeah. It would be a joy to be able to do that. I know many years ago, the Esplanade Association did one BioBlitz, and at the time, I think the idea was still so new that not many people joined in. That has all changed, and we can always find plenty of people who might be willing to do it. So I think it's a great idea, Margaret. Thank you.
Thank you for introducing the concept of BioBlitz to this talk, and also for the history of it on the Esplanade. And if anybody just searches BioBlitz online, you will see a link to iNaturalist as a regular tool that groups use to pursue that. And I see a note from Lynn Young. Hi, Lynn. It's wonderful to see you here, where you say, I have a suggestion. Wonderful presentation. Emma Rose, are you able to help Lynn say hello?
Lynn, you should be able to unmute.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello, Lynn. Happy spring. And just for everybody, Lynn has been a champion of the wonderful Letterman Park within the Charles River Esplanade for many years now, and is a dear friend. Hi, Lynn.
Thanks. Hi, honey. How are you?
Good.
This was beautifully done. Sometimes it's not long enough. I enjoy hearing about everything. I mean, every time we drive by the construction, it's like, well, what's been added and so forth. This was a wonderful presentation. I mean, some of the species I had absolutely no idea were there. And I'm so fascinated. You know me, I'm an educator, and I'm very strong about that. I think she should give lectures. When we get the pavilion, she should give lectures and even maybe an exhibit of some of the, I mean, I don't know if we have room for 130, but, or maybe there could be boards in different places where maybe some of these species, are more obvious along the walkways. I mean, I think I think we should expand on it. I think
Stephanie, you're not being contracted, but you heard it here first that the community would love to learn and see more. And Lynn, I love the idea. Of course, we plan to have educational displays inside and information outside.
Yes, I know.
On the new campus, which it's right at the edge of Letterman Park, and which hosts Teddy Ebersol's Red Sox Field. So we're right there. And I think, Stephanie, if you have interest in more people connecting to your research, or even a link to iNaturalist somehow within the new campus, we will have iPads and things like that for folks to explore. But also, I know your photography is beautiful, and if there were ways to share more information, we would love that.
Always. I'm very happy to share anything I find, whatever is helpful. My main goal has always been just to help educate and show people some of the things that, you may miss or not see every day, that I love to just spend my time staring and looking for. So I'm happy to help.
Well, I think all age groups, we should try to bring the kids, and like in high school, if there are any science groups. I mean, I think it's wonderful. Yeah.
Great suggestion, Lynn. I see also some comments. Joyce Talent, it's great to see you here. I'm glad you were able to cheer on Stephanie. Joyce is also championing like the Friends of Mugar Way to bring more pollinators and more planting even to the entrance at the Fiedler Footbridge into the park, and has done a phenomenal job on that front. And if folks can support that work, please do, because it's going to make such a huge difference for the biodiversity, not just for the humans entering the park. And I love Claire's shout out. I see we still, Stephanie, you're holding many folks. We have many dozens on. If anybody else has questions, please feel free to raise your hand. But until we do, is it okay if I ask you another question, Stephanie?
Of course.
Okay. Fantastic. You mentioned, sort of growing up with the Esplanade over a number of decades. I'm wondering if you can describe a tangible difference between here we are in 2026 and the biodiversity you see now, and perhaps 25 years back, like right at the turn of the century in 2001 when we were founded. Have you noticed a difference? And I know you're looking with a new eye now, with 2020 hindsight. Have you noticed a difference in what I'll call like the vitality of the park or the complexity of the park between then and now?
Yes, of course, absolutely. I mean, just time changes everything one way or the other, for better, for worse. Some things move in, some things move out. But I would say that in the last 25 years, it has been remarkable watching the Esplanade flourish. Now, were there things living there all the way through, different species? Of course there were. But I also recognize, and we sort of touched on this you touched on this just a moment ago, there are pathways for these animals, insects, and plants to be able to sort of move and find their home and find their food. And so as the Charles River gets cleaner and as the care for the Esplanade continues, Jim's amazing job of doing the tree succession planting with a lot more native trees has brought in I saw a brand new bee today over at the Esplanade that I've never seen before, and it's never been seen in the greater Boston area before. Why? Because the right plants and homes are being provided for them. So there's definitely a positive effect over the past 25 years in terms of biodiversity growth, which is great.
And I will just for the group and for the recording, just shout out that James Doyle, is our Director of Park Operations and a trained arborist and horticulturalist who works on the tree management and succession plan. And I'll shout out Margaret Picorni and a number of members of the Esplanade Association community who spearheaded that with Kyle Sick, back in like 2017. By the time Jim came on to the team in 2019, he was able to receive a lot of information about the research of about the tree canopy. They do census work on who are the trees in the park and how are they faring, which are native species, which are not native species, and when those species reach the end of their natural lives, or given that the Esplanade, as you said at the start of your talk, Stephanie, is all human-made and all landfill. This is not pristine, I don't know, down east Maine soil. This is urban fill, right? That when these trees reach the end of their natural lives, or with a lot of activity in the park with vehicles and our wonderful 4th of July concerts and things like that, when things get compacted, we have to plan ahead for the succession of those trees. When those trees fail and need to be removed, that new trees are coming in and filling the canopy. And we can take a fork in the road with replacing for example, a Norway maple, which is a non-native. We could choose to replace it with a native, or we could choose to replace it with a non-native, and think about what zone we're in and what climate we're in and where climate change is taking us to find a species that can thrive but also support other species. So Jim does try to do that following the tree management succession plan. So it's a lot of behind the scenes work to every tree is like bringing a new member of the family into the park, and it's a full decade of stewardship to nurture a baby tree into something that will take hold and really take root. So yes, that's a significant part of the Esplanade Association's work.
Absolutely. And it shows.
And we welcome any other questions. And then if there were questions also, I see one new note below from Emma Rose, where there are more links in the chat if you have any. And Stephanie, I also hope if it's easy enough for you to share the link specifically to your iNaturalist page in the chat, that folks can scan that while they have your attention this evening, because it's really beautiful and specific, and a very thoughtfully curated selection just for us and for for this presentation. So you will be getting a bespoke iNaturalist link.
There you go. I'm
Yes.
happy to share it.
Thank you. I think the one other thing that stood out to me, and I don't know if this is, I know Tom Lewis is on, if this is a third rail question, but Stephanie, we know that Canadian geese are not necessarily native, but they do migrate through the area, and for some reason they're not leaving the park. Have you gotten do you have thoughts from your perspective via like talking with other researchers or your observations of seeing the geese in the park? Thoughts on what's healthy and what's good for the ecosystem, or other talking points that you feel like it's important for folks to learn about and that you think are worth sharing?
Yeah, so it's been very interesting watching over the years what used to be a common migration period of geese coming and going, and now, to your point, they're staying longer and longer. And in fact, there's been a lot of research done showing that with the change in our climate, with things warming and more food sources available, that more of these geese are now staying year-round. Mm-hmm. So they don't leave the way they once did. And it's a problem not just here in Massachusetts, it's elsewhere. It's not just on the Esplanade, it's in all the parks, right? Anywhere there's green space, those geese are going to land and, and potentially take up a home or a nesting site or whatever. And while it's always exciting and feels like it's doing a really great job, I know in the past, many parks have tried things like bringing in dogs to help push the geese out, which is a great temporary resource. But those geese are pretty smart and they'll just wait for the dogs to leave and then they will fly back the next morning or next evening. And so I know for a while, uh, I believe it was the state was oiling the eggs to try to lower the population a bit. And it could be that I know that's very successful. I'm not sure why it hasn't continued. It is a struggle because the geese don't really have that many natural predators. At some point, maybe we'll see some more coyote and fox come through, which I don't think people necessarily want to have happen, but otherwise, it's tricky. It's tricky having them here without any natural predators. So, um, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what more research does to try to compound the problem.
We likewise have at least, I think it's two pairs of swan on the Charles now, one nesting with an egg near Dartmouth landing in the lagoon. I know in 2022 we had some swans in the park, and there were efforts to kind of give the swans their space. I'm just curious what you've observed in the past, or any observations you feel important to share when we're in a nesting season like that.
Yeah, so I remember a number of seasons, a few seasons ago, where the swans were successful in laying eggs and raising a small few number of babies. But uh, you know, it's one of these things where, with all the people walking by, one could say, oh, do we need to cordon things off for fear of disturbing the swan? To a point, of course, that's helpful. But on the other hand, the swan, I'm pretty well aware that they are wide aware that we humans are walking and traversing there all the time. And that doesn't seem to stop them from setting up a nest. So I'm not convinced that they're all that worried about people necessarily taking a quick peek over as long as it's limited to that. I have heard that swan in many areas, kind of like geese, can overpopulate and become just as much of a nuisance as the geese might be, which sounds interesting because it doesn't feel like that's the case, but is the case elsewhere. So that's always something to keep an eye out. However, the snapping turtles, for better or for worse, they have kept a really good sort of ability to not allow the swan population to overpopulate.
Do you, in choosing what to include in iNaturalist, I hadn't seen you post information about like the Canadian geese or things like that. But can you talk about your decisions on what you choose to include or not include?
I can, yes, it's an easy one. So there are a few things. One, iNaturalist inherently really wants us to try to document just things that are wild, that are living in a place that they chose as their home, not because we planted them there or put them there. So domestic animals, cultivated garden flowers, that sort of thing, isn't really what iNaturalist is going to be used for. It's really more just for wild species.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, um, if I were to put every single goose that I saw, then it's useful, it's beneficial because it does show trends, it does show certain key aspects, different times of year, all sorts of things that are really useful. But I find for me that I'm always trying to find the next golden egg, so to speak. So I'm always trying to find something that I haven't seen before or others haven't seen before to try to really make the most of my time to show the ultimate biodiversity that there might be in a given area. That, and the other thing I like to do is try to make relationships. So if there's a certain bee and it only likes a certain plant, or maybe it's supposed to only like one certain plant, but it's going to other plants for its food, that I like to document because it shows what interactions there are between the plants and the insects that help us understand why a plant population is or isn't growing, and equally the health of the bees, that sort of thing. So those are the things I focus on more.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I think, Emma Rose, I will look to you if we have any other questions in the chat, but I feel so nourished, Stephanie, by all the information that I've consumed for the second half of the meeting. It was so edifying, and also, you know, as the sun is going down on the Esplanade, I feel like I came away at the end of this mid-April day knowing so much more about the park we steward than when the day started. So I consider that a good day for the park and in the park.
Well, I hope that everybody, when you go on your next walk, you don't have to look long and hard, but if suddenly you see something flitting, you know, take a moment, stop, try to look, and see if you see something different. Maybe one of the things I mentioned today, even if it's just a turtle on a warm day, see if you see any floating logs in the lagoon area, and then look to see if you see a turtle. And then from there, see if you can see any differences between the turtle and try and identify what it might be. Something, start simple, grow bigger. I promise you, it's really rewarding.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie. And thank you for encouraging folks to, one, visit and really absorb the park. And again, you know, to sustain the tree canopy, you know, we you know, encourage, if people love the work and love the difference that you've been seeing in the park over the past 25 years, you can please feel free to, you know, give us some, you know, some love. And there's a beautiful campaign our team has done for our 25th anniversary called For the Love of the Park. So if you would love to observe from a park bench, you can feel free to help us maintain those. If you would love to support the tree canopy, there's a way to support the trees through our Lasting Esplanade Arbor Fund. If you would love to support the pollinators, there's a way to do that as well. So I think Emma Rose has put a link in the chat, but if you are interested in paying it forward for the next visit to the park and somebody to perhaps discover another species that hadn't been there before because we're taking care of the space, we welcome that. But I just want to end this evening by thanking everybody for all of their support of the park, their care of the park, their active use of the park, and the way you animate it by being there as well. And Stephanie, thank you for your observations and also all of the learning you shared.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you again so much for having me, and congratulations again on 25 years. It's so exciting.
Hey, thank you. Emma Rose, Annalisa, to the entire Esplanade Association team who worked so hard this past year, I thank you. But thanks for helping us share all of this news tonight. I really appreciate it. And happy spring. Yes, see you in the park soon. Take care, everybody.